Hi, my name's Katie Becker. In the article about corporate social responsibility, it starts off about Dutton, who criticized an Australian business that asserted themselves in the argument over same-sex marriage. And he criticized it because he thought that businesses should just stick to their role with stockholders and distribution in the community and not insert themselves in social issues. And Joyce, the company owner, explained that since they played a role in the community, they should have the ability to express their social opinions. And this leads to the idea of corporate social responsibility, which is a body of management, thought, and practice concerning the social role of modern corporations. Basically meaning that companies must fulfill certain obligations to operate, and that they have a certain obligation towards the community and the environment. In the article, they talk about how the integration of the corporate social responsibility is to enable companies to participate in systematic change and social issues. And some say that corporate government should get involved in this issue to help with the laws and like the confinements between this operation. In addition, this article talks about how corporate social responsibility has been rising, and it gives the timelines for each period, and how it has led to a product of intersecting economic, social, and cultural factors in society. And how in Australia, they have developed CSR policies to help polish tarnished company reputations, and this is not the main aim of the CSR policy, but companies have been using it to help them look better. For example, ACX, an Australian company, they have principles of good corporate governance, and best practice, and endorse the material business risk approach that adds CSR into decision making. And it's just one of the ways that CSR has been used. But later in the article, they talk about how they need to replace CSR because the goal is to stop Australian companies by adding the community pluralism principle. And this principle will prevent companies from straying into politics. It will help practice values of inclusiveness, and will help with respecting the public opinion. In the video that Mohammed Yunus talks about, he starts off by explaining the issue in Bangladesh, how there have been attacks on minorities and people with religious differences, and how they have been pushed out into Burma, and how people should get involved with this issue going on because it's important that they are accepted in their own country. But then they move on to the main topic of the conversation about his microcredit idea and how he has given poor women loans of money in which they invest it into their company and or pay it back to him. So they have like this ongoing cycle in which they can create a business and help their families. And he also talks about how he came up with this idea because he saw poor people, and these poor people also have poor health. And he confronted this problem by selling vegetable seeds to grow vegetables, in which this business grew to be very popular, and the problem of night blindness disappeared in the country. And he solved this problem of the night blindness by thinking of a business way. How do we solve this problem? And by selling these seeds and the money that they get back, putting them back into the company, he created a social business, in which a social business is a business created and designed to solve a social issue. And this business doesn't profit, it just goes back into the company in a charitable way. So he also mentioned that the idea that poverty is not created by the poor people, poverty is created by the system that we have created. And people have become more poor because of the wealth concentration has increased to one side of the population, and that that's really bad because not everybody has an even amount of money, and that's in the direction we're heading to where I think in the video he said the people with the most wealth concentration have more than 50% of the lowest poor population. He then also talks about how microcredits are not only for poor banks. Larger banks can do it too, but the reason why it works better in like smaller banks, because the smaller banks tend to focus more on this issue, whereas larger banks thinks the most income comes from the more richer people, so they don't focus on the microcrediting. He then talks about how people can create a social business in which you have to look at a problem and start small, because if you think too big, it becomes overwhelming. And an example that he used was with unemployment, in which he said that if you want to solve unemployment, you have to think of starting, how can I get 3 people who are unemployed employed? And by taking that small step first, you can increase your numbers and hopefully end up solving the issue. He then talked about how the women's status around the world is still second. He aimed his microcrediting idea towards women because their social status is still second class to men, and how it has improved dramatically, because when in Bangladesh in the 1980s, if you would go outside, there wouldn't be any women on the street. But now that he has incorporated this microcrediting idea, it has helped women gain like their independence and found their voice. And now if you go in Bangladesh, there's women everywhere, and they're not afraid to speak their opinion. The interviewer then asks, what is your ideal goal for 25 years? In 25 years. And he said the 3 zeros, which is what his main book is about, how there's 0 poverty, 0 carbon emission, and 0 unemployment. And I think this is very important, because even though he's starting off small right now with his microcrediting idea, and he also had another one about reducing the amount of plastic in the environment, his long-term goal is these 3 big ideals that can't happen in just one step. He has to take a lot of steps to get there, and that's the main point that he stressed about his overall idea of social businesses, is that you can't just see a goal and get there automatically. It takes a lot of steps in between in order to get there. And that's what I think is the main idea of this video and the message that he was trying to communicate to the audience. Thank you.